Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. Wow, hello everybody.
Hello.
So, there I was. To the outside world, I looked successful. Great job, leadership position, beautiful home, financially successful, and well-liked. However, there I was, 15 years ago, on my knees in the kitchen, sobbing uncontrollably, absolutely devastated, exhausted, overworked, overwhelmed, and lost. Wondering, how did I get here? Is this all that life is? Have you ever had a moment like that? Yeah. When I think about it, there was always something that made me feel disconnected from life. I had this inextricable inner tension and turmoil. Day in, day out, working in a predominantly male industry, I would feel that I had to work twice as hard to be anywhere near as good. In meetings, I would freeze, and I would have this constant feeling of self-doubt. And I'd be sure to say yes to more work when I really wanted to say, no. Are you kidding me? Same thing in relationships. I'd choose unavailable men, get blindsided, and I'd always be trying to do more, to be more, to say more, to feel like I mattered in relationship. And all the while, constantly feeling I just wasn't living the life that I was meant to live. I felt so disconnected from myself with yet another relationship with another unavailable man of my choosing just having ended. I didn't know who I was, where I was going, and I couldn't even feel anything anymore. That moment in the kitchen on my knees was my utter, utter low. And yet, that wailing point became my turning point. I knew that there must be more to life than this. Tenderly, I determined to find out how. I went on a journey of self-discovery and healing. NLP, Reiki, hypnotherapy, you name it, I probably did it. Just like I'm sure many of you here have today. Yeah. And I guess you also know, it wasn't easy. However, with all that experience and all that growth, the click that I'd been looking for unexpectedly came one day in a somatic coaching workshop. Somatic coaching works with the body as well as the intellect. And I was describing to this coach how I'd show up in meetings, tense, overwhelmed, stuck, and coming out of meetings with a list of more to-dos as long as my arm and impossible ever to accomplish. With a smile, this coach said to me, relax your thighs. Astonished, I said, what? I was wearing jeans. How did this person possibly know what was going on in my thighs? Nevertheless, I was curious. And I stopped and I noticed how much tension I was actually holding there. So I released the tension in my thighs and subsequently in other parts of my body as well. This coach invited me to play with what I was discovering. And initially, when I showed up in meetings and got tense, overwhelmed, and stuck, and she invited me to just release that tension and breathe and just notice what happened. And this shift was so powerful for me. I'd go into these meetings, I'd sit there, and I'd just let go of this tension. And the best thing about it, nobody knew or could see that I was doing anything. And as I practiced with this new way of being, I noticed how the tension began to fade. I became, over time, more confident, more engaged, and felt more authentic. And when people connected with me, that changed too. I began to feel as though I was being treated like an equal. People sought my contribution, and that really started to change more and more and more. And I really wanted to, I was intrigued, and I took this intrigue and I started to go on more trainings because I was really curious to learn how the way we hold our bodies affects the way that we engage with life and the way that we think and we speak. I got certified in various trainings, and it even led me to get a master's degree. And it's what I now do with working with my clients. And I feel very honoured to work with people in this particular way that was the gift that was given to me. But I realised there was some sort of process that I'd gone through in order to discover what was going on. And I call this approach the Embody approach. And it follows the 6 letters of Embody. And if you'd like to go through it, please do, and just write as we go along. So E equals evaluate. It's about stopping and just taking stock of where you are right now. What's been going on in the past? What's happening in the present? Just like I did that moment on my knees, devastated and in the kitchen. M equals measure. Look and see where you want to see that measurable change in your life, however large or small. For me, it was learning to show up differently in life. B equals break through your patterns. I discovered that I needed to take personal responsibility for showing up in the way that I had been in life, to discover what my part had been in the relationships, in work, and I needed help to do this. O is to observe. Just to observe your body's cues and signals, because we all get triggered and we all get stressed, and the body gives us tons of information about what's going on, just like that coach did for me. D equals different choices. Now you know what the body's cues are, rather than being in reaction when we get tensed and triggered, which is what we typically do, just taking that moment, releasing the tension, breathing, and then being a conscious choice in how to respond instead. Finally, why? Why is for you. This is where you get to become the full expression of you, growing powerfully, personally, and professionally. Now, I want this experience, not just for me, but for everyone who I can possibly have the privilege to work with. And for now, rather than just giving you this idea, I'd like to invite you into a visceral experience, to give you an opportunity to go into my inner thighs moment and have your own. And I like to call this your own inner size. So, are you up for that? Are you up for playing along? Okay. So, I invite you to think about something in the recent past that triggered you, something that annoyed or upset you. Don't go down a rabbit hole of despair, just something that touches you where you can feel some constriction in your body. And maybe, just as you think about that, you notice that your body slumps a little bit. Maybe your head goes down, but however it works for you. And now, just notice any tension or constriction in your body or any negative thoughts just for about 8 seconds. Now, I invite you to just open your eyes, lift up your head and your spine, eyes gently on the horizon, and breathe. And as you breathe, just notice if you've got any tension in your eyes, your jaw, shoulders, maybe your gut, any of your muscle groups, or maybe even in your thighs. And if you have, just breathe and release that tension and constriction. You're in that place now? Yeah. Great. Now, bring that same previous situation to mind, the one that triggered you. And just notice your relationship with that experience now. Whether it's changed, whether there's any change in how you're feeling in your body or in your mind. And it might be the case that it has changed for some people, but not for everybody. And that's okay, because this is something that does come with practice. And if you have noticed a change, I invite you to take, or even if you haven't, I invite you to take that experience out into your life and just to play with it. It's simple, it doesn't take very long. And just notice, when you do take that and you play with it, what's your relationship with life then? How does life respond and change if you're in that more expansive, receptive, and open place? So my wish for you now is, if you ever find yourself on your knees in the kitchen, like I did, devastated, full of despair, that it's not from that place, but it's from a place of gratitude for a life fully lived. Embrace your thighs and embody your dreams. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that inner size.